My name is Dan St.Hilaire, and this is my negotiation project between Warner Brothers, MGM, and Peter Jackson. Peter Jackson was the director and the producer of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. That was one of the highest grossing films in theaters and DVDs, topping $3 billion back in 2003, according to the New York Times. He was offered to be director and producer of The Hobbit and The Hobbit: Desolation of Smaug, after current director Guillermo del Toro was forced to leave the film due to excessive film delays caused by MGM. Jackson was not the only director MGM and Warner Brothers was looking at. Directors such as David Yates and Brett Rather. The negotiation between Jackson and Warner Brothers and MGM was to finalize Jackson's role to both Hobbit's films. Warner Brothers and MGM required Peter Jackson to direct the three-part Hobbit trilogy, which means a commitment of living in New Zealand for up to 6 years exclusively working on the franchise. As for Jackson, according to the New York Times, he stated he wanted to start production on the film immediately, and he announced the film release date of December 2012 and the second a year later. Well, that was some of the terms that Warner and MGM agreed on. One of the main underlying interests was to re-enter the world of the Lord of the Rings through The Hobbit. Recreating Middle-earth was something he envisioned since the Ring franchise closed back in 2003. As for Warner Brothers and MGM, the underlying interest was to build the same profit made by the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which was reaching $3 billion worldwide. The first concept that was used in this negotiation was mutual benefits. Of course, every negotiation needs to reach an agreement. Warner Brothers and MGM were very interested in getting Jackson to direct the Hobbit trilogy. Jackson wanted control over the production when it started and finishes, which the studio allowed. The studio wanted Jackson to slowly work on the Hobbit film while residing in New Zealand for 6 years. The next concept that I chose was Batna. Even though Warner Brothers and MGM officially chose Jackson to direct The Hobbit, more than one director was mentioned in taking the role as director for the film, which gave Warner and MGM the best alternative negotiation agreement. And finally, autonomy was another concept that was used in this negotiation. Warner and MGM gave Jackson enough room, letting him have control over the set base in New Zealand and the casting call with his fellow producers. Something that went well in the negotiation was all parties worked well with each other. Both sides showed appreciation even though financial issues were not concluded yet. Jackson was still able to start pre-production since all parties involved in making The Lord of the Rings, it made it easier to reach underlying interests. Something that went wrong in the negotiation with Warner Brothers and MGM was they were unsure how they were going to finance the picture. So hiring Jackson as a director was unsure and caused some confusion for the negotiation process. The agreement that was reached between Warner Brothers and MGM and Peter Jackson were as follows. Peter Jackson will direct The Hobbit and the sequel, also followed by the terms of the agreement. Jackson will have to reside in New Zealand for 6 years until the project is completed, according to the statement Jackson made in an interview by Deadline. In addition, Jackson must exclusively work on the Hobbit franchise only. The proof is in the pudding. So far, 2 movies have been produced by Jackson in the Hobbit series in the past 2 years. Also, these parties have been in past long-term relationship with the Lord of the Rings trilogies. From our research, I see a window of opportunity to renegotiate in the future.